Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob, born to his beloved wife Rachel. Jacob loved Joseph more than all his other sons and made him a beautiful coat of many colors. This favoritism bred jealousy among his brothers. As a young man, Joseph had 2 dreams. In the first, he and his brothers were binding sheaves in the field when his sheaf stood upright while theirs bowed down to it. In the second dream, the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. When he shared these dreams, his brothers' hatred intensified, though his father kept the matter in mind. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers who were tending flocks in Dothan. When they saw him approaching, they conspired to kill him. "Here comes the dreamer," they said mockingly. Reuben, the eldest, convinced them not to shed blood but to throw him into a pit instead, secretly planning to rescue him later. They stripped Joseph of his colorful coat and threw him into an empty cistern. While eating, they spotted a caravan of Ishmaelite traders heading to Egypt. Judah suggested selling Joseph rather than killing him, and they sold him for 20 pieces of silver. The traders took Joseph to Egypt. To cover their crime, the brothers slaughtered a goat, dipped Joseph's coat in its blood, and presented it to their father. Jacob was devastated, believing his beloved son had been torn apart by wild animals. He mourned inconsolably, refusing all comfort. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, captain of Pharaoh's guard. The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered, becoming overseer of Potiphar's household. However, Potiphar's wife became attracted to Joseph and repeatedly tried to seduce him. Joseph refused, saying he couldn't betray his master's trust or sin against God. One day, when no one else was home, she grabbed his garment, demanding he sleep with her. Joseph fled, leaving his garment in her hand. Furious at being rejected, she falsely accused Joseph of attempting to assault her, showing the garment as evidence. Potiphar, enraged, threw Joseph into prison. Even in prison, God was with Joseph. The prison warden put him in charge of all the prisoners. Soon, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker were imprisoned there. Both had dreams on the same night, and Joseph interpreted them through God's wisdom. He told the cupbearer he would be restored to his position in 3 days, and the baker would be executed. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him to Pharaoh, but when released, the cupbearer forgot Joseph for 2 years. Then Pharaoh had 2 troubling dreams. In the first, 7 fat cows were devoured by 7 thin cows. In the second, 7 healthy grain heads were swallowed by 7 thin ones. None of his magicians could interpret them. Finally, the cupbearer remembered Joseph and told Pharaoh about him. Joseph was brought from prison. After cleaning himself up, he stood before Pharaoh. He told Pharaoh that God was revealing what he was about to do. 7 years of great abundance would be followed by 7 years of severe famine. Joseph advised Pharaoh to appoint someone wise to store grain during the abundant years to prepare for the famine. Pharaoh was impressed and said, "Can we find anyone like this man, in whom is the Spirit of God?" He appointed Joseph as second in command over all Egypt, giving him his signet ring, fine robes, and a gold chain. Joseph was 30 years old. He married Asenath, daughter of an Egyptian priest, and they had 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. The 7 years of abundance came as Joseph predicted, and he stored vast quantities of grain. Then the famine struck, affecting Egypt and surrounding lands, including Canaan where Jacob's family lived. When Jacob heard there was grain in Egypt, he sent 10 of his sons to buy food, keeping only Benjamin, Joseph's younger brother, by Rachel at home. When the brothers arrived, they bowed before Joseph, the governor of Egypt, not recognizing him. But Joseph recognized them immediately, remembering his childhood dreams. Joseph accused them of being spies and imprisoned them for 3 days. He then released all but Simeon, whom he kept as hostage, demanding they return with their youngest brother to prove their honesty. He secretly returned their money in their grain sacks. When the grain ran out, Jacob reluctantly agreed to let Benjamin go, and the brothers returned to Egypt with double the money and gifts. Joseph was overwhelmed when he saw Benjamin. He had them brought to his house for a feast, giving Benjamin 5 times more than the others. Joseph then commanded his steward to fill their sacks with grain and to place his silver cup in Benjamin's sack. After they left, Joseph sent his steward to accuse them of theft. When the cup was found in Benjamin's sack, They were devastated and returned to the city. Judah pleaded with Joseph, offering to become a slave in Benjamin's place because their father would die of grief if Benjamin didn't return. This selfless act broke Joseph. He cleared the room of all Egyptians and revealed himself. "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" His brothers were terrified, but Joseph comforted them, saying, "Don't be distressed or angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." He explained that God had used their evil intentions for good, positioning him to save many lives during the famine. Joseph urged them to bring their father and entire family to Egypt, settling them in Goshen, the best land. Pharaoh welcomed Jacob's family and provided them with the finest provisions. When Jacob heard that Joseph was alive and ruler of Egypt, he was stunned but overjoyed. The entire family, 70 people in total, moved to Egypt. The reunion between Joseph and his father was deeply emotional. Jacob said, "Now I am ready to die since I have seen for myself that you are still alive." Joseph presented 5 of his brothers and his father to Pharaoh, who asked Jacob his age. Jacob replied that he was 130 years old, though his years had been few and difficult compared to his ancestors. Jacob lived in Egypt for 17 years, reaching the age of 147. As death approached, he called Joseph and made him swear to bury him in Canaan with his fathers, not in Egypt. Joseph agreed. Sometime later, Joseph heard his father was ill and brought his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to him. Though nearly blind, Jacob blessed Joseph's sons, crossing his hands to place his right hand on Ephraim, the younger, giving him the greater blessing. He prophesied that Ephraim would become greater than Manasseh. Jacob then gathered all 12 sons and gave each a prophetic blessing, speaking of their future and the future of their tribes. To Judah, he prophesied that the royal line and the Messiah would come through his lineage. After blessing his sons, Jacob instructed them once more to bury him in the cave of Machpelah in Canaan, where Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and his wife Leah were buried. Then he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Joseph threw himself on his father and wept over him, kissing him. He had his physicians embalm Jacob, a process that took 40 days. The Egyptians mourned for 70 days. Joseph asked Pharaoh for permission to bury his father in Canaan as he had sworn. Pharaoh agreed, and a great company, including Egyptian officials, all Joseph's household, his brothers and their families, traveled to Canaan. The funeral procession was so impressive that the Canaanites remarked on it. Joseph and his brothers buried Jacob in the cave of Machpelah as he had requested. After the burial, Joseph's brothers feared he might now take revenge for what they had done to him years ago. They sent a message claiming Jacob had asked Joseph to forgive them before his death. When Joseph heard this, he wept. His brothers came and bowed before him, offering to be his slaves. But Joseph reassured them, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children." Joseph continued to live in Egypt with his father's family, and he lived to see his great-great-grandchildren. At the age of 110, as he was dying, he told his brothers, "God will surely come to your aid and take you up out of this land to the land he promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." He made them swear to carry his bones up from Egypt when God brought them back to the promised land. Joseph died and was embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt, his bones waiting for the day when his descendants would carry them to their true home. The story of Joseph teaches us that even when people mean to harm us, God can work everything together for good according to his purpose. Joseph remained faithful to God through slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment, and instead of seeking revenge against his brothers who betrayed him, he chose forgiveness and told them, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." This shows us that no matter how difficult our circumstances may be, if we maintain our integrity, trust in God's timing, and choose forgiveness over bitterness, God can use our trials to position us for his greater plan, not just for our own benefit, but to bless many others as well.